We are tracking an active exploitation campaign targeting an 18-year-old vulnerability. CVE-2008-4128 is a cross-site request forgery bug, currently hijacking legacy networks. The attackers are exploiting the HTTP administration component specifically inside Cisco IOS version 12.4, running on 871 integrated services routers. This is a coordinated vulnerability disclosure alert. We are broadcasting this to force immediate operational mitigations across vulnerable sectors. The threat profile here relies on age. This hardware predates modern security standards like anti-CSRF tokens. Because it operates outside contemporary compliance checks, it provides attackers with a silent, invisible initial access point. Ignoring your end-of-life hardware guarantees that the forgotten edges of your network will be weaponized by modern adversaries. The National Vulnerability Database logged this in September 2008. It sat dormant until GitHub publication in May 2022. On July 13, 2026, CISA added it to their Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog, triggering a strict 3-day remediation deadline closing July 16th. Comms check. Hit subscribe on @cybertech79 and enable notifications. You need real-time intel to stay ahead of zero-day warnings. Leave a like on this video to formalize your AKK, acknowledgement of receipt of this intel package. When a patch window is compressed to 72 hours, maintaining an active real-time threat intelligence channel is your only operational defense. This diagram compares theoretical severity against actual exploitation. On paper, CVE-2008-4128 has a CVSS 3.1 base score of 4.3, classifying it as a medium severity threat. But the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, or EPSS, shows a massive probability score of 23.857%. A 23.8% probability places this exact flaw in the 98th percentile of all tracked vulnerabilities globally. For specific sectors, the risk scales even higher. Blue Goat Cyber rates this as a 4.7, identifying it as a notable threat for medical and clinical networks. CVSS evaluates technical impact in a vacuum. It assumes a static environment and ignores active, in-the-wild exploitation trends. If your patch management relies entirely on static severity scores to prioritize legacy hardware, you are leaving your network exposed to active campaigns. This is a sequence diagram illustrating CWE-352, Cross-Site Request Forgery, or CSRF. The Cisco iOS 12.4 firmware was engineered before anti-CSRF tokens became a mandatory web standard. Those validation tokens are missing from its HTTP headers. Without that token, the router's HTTP administration server has no mechanism to verify if a request was intentionally initiated by the actual user. The attacker executes the exploit by tricking an authenticated administrator into loading a malicious web page, piggybacking on the admin's active session. In the first attack path, the adversary bypasses basic checks by transmitting a forged show privilege command directly to the level 15 exec URI. The second path achieves arbitrary execution. The attacker forges an alias exec command and targets the HTTP configuration URI. The router accepts these forged requests as legitimate. The attacker can now silently issue privileged commands without triggering any warnings on the admin's end. Once inside, they can spawn persistent backdoor accounts, rewrite routing tables, or shut off security controls entirely. A CSRF flaw weaponizes the inherent trust your network places in the administrator's browser. It turns the defender into the attack vector. Moving from the packet level to physical environments, the targets at the highest risk are clinical care facilities and diagnostic laboratories. These specific medical environments rely heavily on Cisco 871 routers, devices that have been end-of-life for years. These routers are rarely housed in pristine data centers. They sit in unmonitored utility closets, functioning as forgotten edge infrastructure. Cybercriminals and state-sponsored groups actively scan for these specific legacy models to use as invisible initial access points. Once they compromise the router, their objective shifts to lateral movement, pushing deeper into the hospital's internal network. CISA lists ransomware usage for this CVE as unknown. However, historical data proves CSRF exploitable network devices frequently serve as prime footholds for ransomware that's booming. Attackers target these devices specifically because they fall completely outside the scope of modern, automated patch management and compliance audits. A medium-severity router bug hidden in a wiring closet provides a direct path to compromising hospital operations and critical patient safety. This exploit triggered an immediate federal response, CISA's Binding Operational Directive 2604. BOD 2604 legally mandates risk-based patching and immediate operational mitigations for any asset added to the KEV catalog. Because iOS 12.4 is permanently unpatchable, network defenders must immediately access the command line interface and disable the HTTP and HTTPS management server components on the router. There is a secondary alternative, strictly for environments where web-based management access is an absolute operational requirement. If the server must remain active, defenders are required to enforce rigorous access control lists to severely restrict allowed IPs. If you suspect a device has already been compromised, you must follow CISA's forensics triage requirements before you wipe or replace the hardware. Confronted with an unpatchable zero-day, administrative convenience has to be sacrificed immediately to secure the network perimeter. Organizations running end-of-life infrastructure face a harsh reality. No vendor patches will ever be issued to save these systems. If you are operating Cisco 871 routers, you have a permanent choice to make. You either enforce strict physical network isolation, or you initiate a complete hardware replacement. The urgency of this alert is dictated by the ethics of coordinated vulnerability disclosure. In clinical environments, patient safety relies on the rapid sharing of threat intel. The resurgence of CVE 2008-4128 proves one structural rule. An enterprise network perimeter is only as strong as its oldest, most forgotten node. Stay secure.